Not far, close to it. So it's what's going into the book. So this yeah, I mean, we're okay that way. So then you get trees coming down a bit. Well, she's doing the fundraising. She's doing what's the name? The other day, did you put a piazza? In the Coach's building, you know, the odd shaped building. No, I've never been. Well, I was in that. There's a coffee shop or something. So on the other side. That's a common cafe. Yeah. No, this is an Italian restaurant. Yeah. In that building? In that building, yeah, in the, if you're looking at the building, you know, it slants this way, you know. In that lower right, in the lower left-hand corner, military right. The lower left-hand corner. Yeah, Italian restaurant, it's good, really good. So they had a fundraiser, and he's so generous, Coach. Yeah. Gave 100% of the proceeds from 12 noon to 7 o'clock. 100% of the group. That's anybody that, not just. Anybody that walked in the door. Wow. Yeah. So now Jimmy Max giving me 10%. Yes. And I still don't remember why.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm
As
sorry.
soon as, we're waiting
I
on
was
you, as
talking-
soon as you
I
get
was
set
talking to
up.
this guy. Sorry.
Then you go back out.
I was going to interview somebody, somebody can have.
Well, we're waiting on you, Commissioner.
You're the holdup.
All right.
Well, you need a sign sheet or anything? Of course we do. Of course we do.
Keep going.
And I'm guessing that Nick is also the rep from the state assemblyman?
Say again?
Is the rep from the state assemblyman?
That's Perzola, he's a local,
I had a half hour.
I think he's state legislator.
Yes, hello, I'm Chief of Staff to Assemblyman Pirizzolo.
That's
Okay,
it,
great,
Assembly,
thank you.
I got it right.
So she said every night, and you what? I thought it was earlier than it really was. I thought it was 4:30, it was 5. So now I can't.
So you can hear, you can't remember.
You can't tell from nuts.
Okay.
That's why I'm 100% the state.
I would say start off with like.
All right, do you need to set anything up?
I can't read it. I'm just speaking about the.
Here's the right here. And, Dr. DeMello?
So Lauren and JL are, and well, they said that it was like 6:09, so they come, we can get started.
Okay.
So I gotta talk to Vincent, so I can start us off.
What else you want other than?
Name, what affiliation?
Doing the same thing you do, I'm just gonna be on the meeting, so they can see me, that's heard.
See you next time.
Normally we'll start at 6:05-ish, so it'll be a minute or so.
Thank you so much.
Oh, I have,
Oh, I just use my hotspot.
Oh, you do, okay.
Well, I was gonna, lead off the things and then pass it up to Doc to Lauren and Mel. So
Okay.
the timing works out, you wanna sit here.
Okay.
You can get up if you want.
Once it's all ready and settled, we'll go ahead.
Not giving up.
Let us know when you're good, Paul.
So those who see me and I can mention things that I'm gonna use it, but like, I don't wanna echo this, you know what I mean?
No, set the camera that way. Wow. Okay, so it's 6:06. We'll go ahead and start. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the New York City Veterans Advisory Board public session held in Staten Island. My name is Mercedes Elias. I am the chair of the Veterans Advisory Board, Marine Corps veteran representing Queens. We are joined today by Makita Campbell, who is a representative from Senator Staten, who is the chair of the State Veterans Committee with us. She's here with us.
Hello.
In presence, and also Nick Robbins, who serves as the chief of staff to Assemblyman Pirozzolo, is joining us virtually as well. I do want to acknowledge that today is Women Veterans Recognition Day. Today marks the 76th anniversary of the Women Armed Services Integration Act, which has recently become known as Women Veterans Recognition Day. While women's service dates back as far back as the Revolutionary War, it was not until President Truman signed the act on June 12, 1948, that women were finally allowed to serve in the armed forces in a full capacity, allowing women to retire and access veterans benefits. So as a women veteran, I'm very grateful for today. With that, I will go ahead and start off by having the board members introduce themselves. First, I'll start with Paul, who's joining us here, and then I'll turn it over virtually. So Paul, if you wanted to.
Hey, I'm Paul Dietrich, retired Army. I represent Staten Island.
And I also did want to acknowledge Francesca Galelli, representing District Attorney McMahon's office. I will turn it over to the Vice Chair, Ryan Graham.
Ryan Graham, Air Force veteran. I won't say anything else. That's it.
Thank you. Brendan.
Brendan Gibbons, Marine Corps veteran, representing Queens.
Thank you. And Wendy.
Good evening, everyone. Wendy McClinton, Air Force, United States Air Force, honorably discharged female veteran, Desert Storm Persian Gulf era vet, and welcome everyone.
Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to Commissioner Hendon, who is with us here in Staten Island for any opening remarks before starting with the old business.
No, just echoing what you said, Mercedes, happy Women Veterans Day, everybody. Just happy to be with you guys. I'll say a few things before we get to the mental health. I'm just going to speak to some events and speak to our veteran military survey. As far as just past events, this past May 4th, we had a METS military summit, so a summit at Citi Field for our veterans. We had more than 120 attendees. Also on the 11th of May, we had a military family advocate event at the Treaty School here in Staten Island, where there were well over 250 attendees as far as veteran and military families on the island. We just had a women veterans luncheon on the 5th of June, so just last week, and there were just over 60 attendees and a more boutique event we had for our women veterans in the area. And coming soon, next big one for us is going to be Welcome Home Summit at Yankee Stadium, to be held on Friday, September 20th. Where for that Welcome Home Summit, will be us in partnership with Blue Star Families and with the Veterans Benefits Administration and the Center for Women Veterans. More to follow on that. That'll be during the day, so 10 a.m. on Friday, September 20th. There's going to be a VAC, or Veterans Experience Action Center, co-located with it. In other words, anyone who needs to go see someone from VA, the setup is one where you can, in theory, on site, get a rating if need be, if you have all of your documentation there. They're gonna have folks from the health side of things there as well, and folks from the Veteran Benefits Administration side who actually confer ratings. So anyone who's looking at getting an increased rating or getting an initial rating, highly recommend that, and more to follow there. Welcome Home Summit, Friday, September 20th. So that's just speaking on events. Also, to call out Fleet Week and Memorial Day. Yeah.
Did you mention the July 14th at the Ferry Hawks that I had brought up?
Goodness, I'm so sorry, Paul, forgive me. Can you speak to that? I'm sorry, man. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. There is a Veterans Recognition ball game, July 14th, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The game starts at the Staten Island Ferry Hawks. There'll be a large amount of veterans physically there at the park. So again, that's a good place. You might want to have a table or some type of way of reaching out to them. That's a Sunday.
I want to double down in that Paul will connect offline. Events that are here in the veteran community can be found on the calendar of ourveterans.nyc. So, anything as far as looking at what's coming down the pipe, we encourage folks to look at ourveterans.nyc. And we'll be sure to get that Staten Island Ferry Hawk event on July 14th at 4 p.m. that's there. A few other things, I want to introduce some folks from the team at DDS who are here, and then we'll go back to you, Mercedes, before we get into the main discussion. Fleet Week Memorial Day. This past season, the Wednesday before Memorial Day into the Tuesday afterwards marked Fleet Week 2024 here in the New York City region. We had 27 different events that we as an agency attended, and there were 7,000 personal impressions. In other words, a touch where someone from our agency had some sort of interaction with someone who was external as far as just making sure they know who we are and what we do. And then one other bit of housekeeping, our survey is still up as far as the 2024 Veteran and Military Community Survey. It can be found at nyc.gov/vet-survey. So we encourage all in our community, between those who served and their loved ones, to fill it out. And once again, that's nyc.gov/vet-survey. So to recap, for events, we had our Met Military Summit on the 4th of May, our Military Family Advocate Program at the Treaty School on the 11th. We had our Women Veterans Luncheon on June 5th. We have a Welcome Home Summit coming soon at Yankee Stadium on Friday, September 20th. There's also a July 14th event at Staten Island Ferry Hawks, which we'll get on ourveterans.nyc. And recapping Fleet Week, 27 events as far as with DVS representation, 7,000 personal impressions. And then please visit nyc.gov/vet-survey to take the 2024 Veteran and Military Community Survey. With that, I want to just make sure folks know who we have from DVS in the room. Calling out, first and foremost, we've got Joe List, who is our representative here in Staten Island. So Joe, we'll give Joe a little bit of time once we get the floor, but make sure we got Joe List who's here. We also have Dr. Lauren DeMello, who leads our mental health efforts for DVS, so our Executive Director for Mental Health. Also, we have our Senior Advisor for Intergovernmental Affairs, Jason Lochran, who are here. And you'll hear more from Jason and from Lauren later. At some point, we'll make sure to give Joe the floor also as our point person on all issues that relate to Richmond County veterans. We'll let him speak too in a little bit. But back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So each session, we do try to focus on one of the charter areas for the Department of Veteran Services. Today, we are going to be focused on healthcare as a charter area with a focus on mental health and specifically mental health resources. Just a note for everybody, the next meeting is on Wednesday, September 12th. It will be located in the Bronx. The focus for charter area is going to be education with a specific focus for transitioning service members, including veterans on campus. So any of the veterans and their educational needs, that is going to be the focus for next one. The only piece of old business that we did want to cover is the updated status on the funds from the PFC Dwyer program.
Yeah, thank you so much. So for the Dwyer program, we're currently waiting for a green light from the Mayor's Office of Management and Budget to proceed with releasing that RFP or request for proposals. Information will be posted on nyc.gov/vet-dwyer. It's taken us time because we're doing this in a different way by taking state money and trying to democratize getting it out in the hands of our local veteran groups. And so for that reason, we had to go through several extra hoops with the Mayor's Office of Contract Services and with the Office of Management and Budget. One of the things, and I mentioned to Paul just a minute ago, we're in a place now where we are waiting to get the official word from the Office of Mental Health at the state level to OMB. Once they tell OMB, hey, you guys can proceed with rolling over money from one fiscal year to the next. Once we get that official confirmation, then we're gonna go forward and be able to release. So everything is ready to go. But once we get that actual word from OMB, which they're waiting for the New York State Office of Mental Health, then we'll be able to go live with that. And that'll be at nyc.gov/vet-dwyer. We've alerted folks from the mayor's team that covers down on all the issues of this. And we're reaching out accordingly to see if there are other ways to get touches so that we can have, that thumbs up, which we know is going to come. It's just a formality, so we can then come and be very public about folks applying.
Thank you. I also did want to note, just for everybody, that the New York City Council Committee on Veterans is having an oversight hearing next Tuesday, June 18th at 1 p.m. The topic is promising therapies for veterans' mental and emotional health. So just a note, it's going to be in committee room at 250 Broadway on the 14th floor. There is going to be a Zoom option available for that. So I will put the link in the chat for anybody who would like to register in person or online to provide testimony for that. And that's just because one of the questions that we had previously was to get information about the different council meetings that are being held specifically for veterans needs. So with that, if anybody else present has any questions, on old business for the commissioner or anybody online, you have the floor now at this time for any additional questions.
Silence.
Mercedes, if we can, if I could, I want to, you know, if it's okay, before we get into mental health, I'd like to cover a few legislative things.
Okay.
And JL, feel free to join me on this as need be done. And then we'll get to our piece of the presentation. And then I'd love to kind of close out with Joe, if it's okay, as far as letting Joe introduce himself as our guy, our person Staten Island. Just before we get into mental health, on the legislative side, just three big ticket things I want to mention from the city level, the state level, and the federal level. And Mercedes, I've checked with our team. I believe we have posted information about the upcoming city council hearings. That is something that we are making publicly available, and we thank the board for advocating for that. So folks will know about upcoming sessions like the one that's coming up on mental health on Tuesday, June 18th. City level, something of note to mention, and just to give folks a heads up that this is still in the works, but we are, you know, we've gotten signs that there's positive movement on the Cold War veterans property tax exemption. Right now, we're not in those conversations. It's higher than us. This is something where it's between the mayor and the speaker's team on getting that done. But we've been told on our side, on the mayor's side, that there is complete advocacy for that. This is the legislation from Councilman Borelli here that would create the veteran property tax exemption as far as the Cold War veterans property tax exemption for those who are veterans who are not do not have combat service. And so that's one thing as far as what we know. As soon as we learn more, we'll let you know. But it's at a level that's higher than us at this time. We know that the mayor is advocating for it. We know there's positive response on the speaker's side, but things are in negotiation. So that's one on the city level. Make sure folks are tracking. Another one, you know, got to give roses to Senator Scarcella Stanton's office at the state level. This most recent legislative session, they passed legislation at the Assembly with Assemblyman Marianne Butchinson, and the Senate with Senator Justice Scarcella Stanton, where the state's scholarship program, the Veteran Tuition Award Program, if signed by the governor, eligibility will be expanded beyond combat veterans. Currently, the state's tuition program for veterans is one where you have to be a combat veteran to obtain it. It pays for, at the SUNY rate, 8 semesters of undergrad education, 6 semester equivalents of a grad school education, and 6 semester equivalents of workforce development training. If signed by the governor, you're looking at this no longer having a combat designation for it. So folks who not quote unquote combat veterans will be able to use this scholarship. And so we really want to give roses to the senator's team and to Assemblyman Butchinson for that. And just so folks are tracking, that's S8596. It's A9205. Once again, the state, that's S8596. In the Assembly, it's A9205. Both passed through those chambers last week. And then at the federal level, there's positive movement on the Fair Access to Co-ops for Veterans Act, HR 7703. This is, if approved, a way to add co-ops to the VA home loan program. This is Nicole Malliotakis as the representative on the GOP side in the House, Grace Ming as representative on the Democratic side in the House, looking like it'll be Gillibrand in the Senate and Braun in the Senate as far as a bipartisan approach to this. And so once again, currently it's an amendment in the NDAA. It's introduced. It's an amendment in the NDAA right now in the House version. We'll see it soon introduced in the Senate version. The hope is that it makes it through the conference later on this year. And so these are 3 big ticket things. City level and the city legislation is 377-2022 is the Borelli bill, Cold War veteran property tax exemption. It's currently in play above our levels. So it's 377-2022 legislation is currently being discussed with the Cold War veteran property tax exemption. State legislation A9205, S8596. This is the Veteran Tuition Reward Program, removing the combat qualifier on it, eligibility. Fair Access to Co-ops for Veterans Act. This is HR 7703. That's Malliotakis and Ming in the House. It's Braun and Gillibrand in the Senate. And so just some things put out there for folks to be aware of with work that we think is directly impacting to our community. Okay, sorry, I know that was a lot. Just put it out. Dale, please, get in.
Yeah, one more thing I'd like to add.
Let them see you.
Thank you, sir.
Look at the camera.
Hi, everybody. Good to be here. June 25th, there's also a hearing that the Parks Department is hosting for street vendors. And this topic is actually covering the overnight storage of vending goods. So we know that there's a large proportion of veteran street vendors who are small business owners here in the city of New York. We encourage all of you to make yourself available for that hearing and to testify on this critical topic, especially those with disabilities who might not have the means of being able to bring their equipment back and forth on a daily basis for their business. We will follow up with those details for all of you to register the testimony if you choose to. I'm going to give it back to Commissioner.
No, thank you. I've got to say something. I'll just speak broadly and then pass it to her. She'll take us through this presentation. When we think about mental health as far as the New York City Department of Veteran Services, let's step back from mental health for a minute. The work in our eyes is between three big things, big functions. There's direct services we provide, there's referrals, and then there's synergies. So direct services is things that we roll up our sleeves and do directly, where there's a unique value add for us getting into this activity within the community. Those direct services this agency provides are claims, housing work, burials, that is, if a veteran passes away and there's no one there to make sure they have the appropriate burials, indigent burials, and care coordination. So once again, for the direct services, claims, housing, burials, and care coordination. Referrals is anything that if we know someone who's able to help our brothers and sisters, we make sure that all of our community knows about them. And those referrals can either come through our Vet Connect NYC platform. They can come through nyc.gov/vet mental health in this case, where you can see a host of different just programs and offerings there. And so, or it could be someone reaching out and us saying, hey, look, let's make sure we connect person X with opportunity Y. So those are referrals. The other thing that we do is synergies. And that's really the 1 + 1 = 3 work, where it's us working together with other stakeholders to make it so that the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And there's several things that Lauren will talk about that are in our synergies category, where we do something, but our community partners do something else, and we're able to get that 1 + 1 = 3 action. And so when we think about mental health, and what Lauren will take you through in a minute, it's just how mental health dovetails with how we do our work in general, between the direct services work, the referrals work, and the synergies work. A couple of things I'll say about this before passing the doc on this. This is work that we cannot do alone. A lot of the mental health work is so dependent on partners and allies. I want to emphasize that. And so as she speaks to you about things, you'll see so much of our impactful activities and things where we try to find the unique value we can play, but then allow others to come in and do what they need to do on this. That's one piece. Another thing, when we think about mental health, we are not the VA. We are not a federal organization. We're not a state organization at any level. Our main focus is to provide value such that no one falls through the cracks and is not served from a mental health way if need be. And so there could be situations where someone is already getting certain support from our folks at the federal level or from our friends at the state level. And so they may say, hey, look, we're good to go. I don't need you for this. I need you for something else, for housing. I need you for benefits, et cetera. Or there'll be a situation where someone says, look, no, I do need you for something. And we do try to stand in that gap and work with our partners to kind of get to a good place on that with our brothers and sisters. Another thing I want to say on the mental health piece, it's very important to us just on principle to not infantilize those who serve. I say this as someone who's deployed myself and dealt with this. I don't know if other people have, where you say you deployed and you say that you served in the military, people automatically think or treat you like you're broken. It's very important to us to not be that way with our brothers and sisters, to meet people where they are in helping them with whatever is to occur. So you could be working with someone on something, and then a mental health issue comes up in a subtle way. Once the trust is there, then we can step in and be right. And so just to put those meta issues out there when we think about, what we're doing, between this being something that is heavily reliant on our partners, this being something that is embedded in what we do between direct services, referrals, synergies, us being intentional about not infantilizing our people. These are some big broad strokes. I want to make sure that folks understand when they think about what we do in the mental health space. And then the other piece of it where it's us trying to make sure any holes in the net are accounted for when dealing with people. And so recognize that we are not the VA. That being said, I want to turn it over to our Executive Director for Mental Health and Care Coordination, Lauren DeMello, she'll take it through a presentation, just gets it.
As,
yeah,
as Lauren
yeah.
comes up, John Rowan, you have your hand raised?
No.
Oh, no, okay, you're good. So now we'll turn it over to Dr. DeMello.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am Dr. Lauren DeMello. I am the Executive Director of Community Mental Health at New York City's Department of Veteran Services, and I am going to walk you through our mental health services and relationships. So as the commissioner mentioned, to explain our mental health, I broke them down into 3 buckets. We have direct services, which include our mental health assessments. We have internal trainings and we have external trainings. We also have referrals. We have clinical referrals, and we also have alternative therapies. I'll go through that in a little bit. And our synergies. Our synergies are our collaborations that we forge to for certain programs and certain initiatives, and I'll go over those different programs shortly. Just move this over. All right. So as part of our direct services, we administer 2 mental health surveys. Our client-facing staff does that. We have the GAD-7, which stands for the General Anxiety Disorder 7. The 7 stands for 7 questions, and that's used to measure anxiety. And we also administer the Patient Health Questionnaire 9, PHQ-9. That means it has 9 questions, and that's used to measure depression. The scores are shared with the individuals, our veterans, and from there we suggest or we welcome them, we invite them to engage in mental health services if they're interested. As part of our internal and external trainings, I have trained the staff on de-escalation. We were finding that our client-facing staff was often coming into contact with veterans who were declining in their mental health, and they weren't sure what to do. They weren't sure how to calm them down. They weren't sure where to refer them. They weren't sure what city services were available. So we trained the staff on how to de-escalate them. We also partnered with New York City and New York State Mental Health Services to see what our city offers our veterans, what our city offers our city staff that we can offer our veterans. Sorry, one more thing that I want to mention is our staff is also trained on our resources, our mental health resources. Staff often meets with our mental health providers and they learn of the different services. So when they come in contact with veterans, they know which are appropriate, which services are appropriate to offer, how they can engage them, what are the intakes like, and if not, they refer them to me and I assess the client and can refer them accordingly. Right, so I'm going to move on to our next bucket. These are our referrals. So these are some of our buckets of referrals. We have a lot of different types of referrals. We have a range of referrals from acute to intensive, and we really want to meet the veteran where they are. We really want you to try different therapies and see what works for you. Not everyone is comfortable with talk therapy. Not everyone is comfortable sitting down and going into detail about their history or what they're going through. So we offer a range of services. For example, we have equine therapy, we have canine therapy, we have a variety of holistic therapies, peer-to-peer. We have over 40 different providers that we use regularly, that we refer veterans to. So I invite you that, you can try different modalities to see if they make you feel better, right? There are just a lot of options that we offer. We also utilize the Vet Connect platform for our referrals. That's a platform where if you call us, we create a profile for you and we note our interactions with you. So if you call us or we interact with you at a different time, we are aware of the history that we've had with you. So you don't have to go into your history. Another care coordinator can pick up services for you seamlessly. I'm gonna go into our synergies bucket. So our synergies, we're gonna describe them as our collaborative partnerships that we have forged for initiatives and programs. So first we have the Veterans Mental Health Coalition, where our synergies are with several different mental health providers. We have our crisis intercept mapping, where we work with SAMHSA and the VA. We have our military family advocate program, where we partner with the Department of Education. We have our mission vet check, where we partner with New York Cares. And we have our Dwyer program, where we utilize different providers, various providers. So as far as our Veterans Mental Health Coalition, it's a group of mental health organizations, clinicians, researchers, program managers, and we meet virtually once a month, and we talk about different mental health concerns of veterans, programs, new therapies available, evidence-based practices. We also invite the team to these presentations so that they can learn and ask questions directly and learn of these programs so they can then refer or suggest them to our constituents. This is actually a picture of our coalition, one of the first times that we met. This was one of our in-person meetings. Another synergy that we have is what's called crisis intercept mapping. It's with SAMHSA and the Service Member, Veteran, and their Families Technical Assistance Center. And through that program, we assess and improve community crisis care systems and services, strengthen partnerships among military and civilian community stakeholders, develop a tailored crisis intercept map for your community hand in hand with an action plan to improve crisis care services, and develop interagency protocols for crisis care coordination. And implement best practices for suicide prevention. So essentially what we have done is we have created a cultural competency training and suicide prevention training that we train clinical staff around the city so that when they engage with veterans, they understand their constituents, they understand who they're serving, right? Veterans are a very unique population. The things that they have gone through, their mental health is somewhat unique. And we would like the people that serve them, the clinicians, the providers, to really understand the population. So far, we have trained mobile crisis teams throughout the city. And next week, we are training ACT teams. And those are mobile mental health teams that serve veterans. Not veterans, they actually serve all New Yorkers. But we train them so that when they do engage with the veteran, they understand what the veteran's needs are. Our next synergy that I'm going to go through is our military family advocate program. This is a partnership that DVS has with the New York City Department of Education. And we aim to have one liaison, veteran liaison in every public school. This year, we piloted the program in Staten Island, where schools could volunteer to be a part of this program. 55 public schools volunteered to participate. We connected 242 military families through those 55 schools. So a few things that we required, the military family advocate, one, they had to go through military cultural competency training. They had to understand the population. They had to understand their concerns and understand how to engage them, right? And so they had to also think of it from the lens of a school, right? From the lens of a child, from the lens of a family. What is it like for a child whose parent has to leave, right? What are things that you may notice within that child, right? Are they anxious? Are they, shunning people off? Are they creating fights in school? So we want to work with families so we can help with the things that they go through. If a parent is being deployed, how can we help that child so that deployment is not traumatic to them? How can we support the family while the parent is gone? So it's not so much of a burden. So we worked with these families. We provided we provided supports throughout the year. One of the examples is we had a veteran who came back from deployment and he lost his leg. And so he was a single parent and he couldn't take his child to the bus stop because the bus stop was 4 blocks away. And so we worked with the Department of Education to move that bus stop so it was at the corner so he could stand in the front of his house and watch his first grader get on the bus, right? So it's these little things that make a difference because he was really upset. he was having a trouble transitioning to this new life. So, you know, we try to help in whichever way we can. We also required the MFAs to hold at least one event in the school to reduce stigma. This could range from participating in a career day. This could be holding a resource fair. This could be coming to a social studies class or reading books to young children. You know, oftentimes we think of people in the military of what we think of in movies, right? And that's not always the case. They're not always as aggressive or as scary. So to reduce that stigma of what we think of veterans, we want to expose them to children. So I'm gonna skip to the next slide. I'm gonna share an example. We had PS 26 welcomed Mr. Paul Dietrich to their school. He visited with the 4th and 5th grade students, and he discussed his experience of being in the military, being in a military family. Students were encouraged to ask questions about his family's military experience, especially during the Revolutionary War period. That's him speaking.
That's what.
Yes, that is. At the end of his visit, Blue Star Families donated a Pledge of Allegiance board to the school, and they read off of it every morning after their announcements. So thank you, Mr. Paul Dietrich. This is an example of how we're integrating people from the military into schools to reduce stigma. I have another example. PS 50 had their 3rd grade class learn about veterans and write cards for Memorial Day for their local American Legion post. Those are some of their cards. I'm just going to back up for 1 second. This picture also at the end of the year, we had an event for all the schools and all the families of Staten Island. It was called the Military and Veteran Family Fair. And this is a picture from it. We had color guards, we had music, we had games. It was a good time. Another synergy that we have is Mission Vet Check. With Mission Vet Check, DVS partners with New York Cares, and we make check-in calls to veterans to ensure that their needs are being met and see in what ways that we can support them. During those calls, we have volunteers from New York Cares to reach out to the veterans, and if they're in crisis, calls get forwarded to me. And I have to say, there have been a few veterans who were in need, mental health crisis, that I really had to de-escalate them in the moment. I had one veteran who was forwarded to me where he was going through very severe PTSD. He was crying. He was literally crying on the phone because he was having flashbacks. So he was very appreciative that at least I could help him walk through that moment, right? And then we referred him to mental health treatment. So this vital outreach creates a crucial point for connection between veterans and their community through phone calls to provide resources and information about public services. Commissioner, do you want to talk about Dwyer here?
Oh, no, nothing to say about Dwyer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is a piece of mental health. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah. I have a question.
Sure.
Who funds this?
Funds what?
Who pays for all of these services?
You're New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This goes back to this touches we have a small budget. So we're the smallest agency and the youngest agency in the city. Our budget is $5 million. $1.5 million is non-personnel. The other $3.5 million is personnel. We've got an authorized strength of 38 people. A lot of this work is us working with partners. So it's us working with different groups to kind of punch above our weight class to get to that 1 + 1 = 3. So a lot of things Lauren was describing, it's not funded through us. It's us leveraging relationships to try to get to the next level.
Because my point was going to be, with all the money that we're pouring into wherever, be it overseas, be it migrants, be it wherever, I think the most money should be put to mental health.
I agree.
Wherever you get it. Because this is where the problem starts. When you read about everything in the papers, this is the problem. And not enough money is being put to mental health.
I want to say this alongside that. For us, we're trying to find unique ways we can add value. So it's like Marvin Marsh, that little cartoon with the guy picking at the boulder for all of them to come down. I think an issue that we're dealing with is identifying the veterans. In other words, You look at me, for everyone in this room, it's 1 out of 4 of us self-ID in New York City. So it's like 24.2%. And so to me, I think that that's a key piece of it as well, as far as how do we can't even begin to attack it if we don't know where our people are. And so that's why we're trying to work on that piece as well. So I get you on the research, and I'm with you, but I feel like the area where we're trying to add unique value also is identifying our brothers and sisters and trying to bring them in, have them join hosts like Gold Star, and be able to help them. So I just want to add that to what you're saying.
Just an important point about identification, and it's similar to a census. The more that we can identify how many veterans they're serving and helping, the more funding that you can justify.
Yeah.
Because if only 20 identify, but 2,000 need help, I'm only gonna give you money for the 20 that identify. But if I can identify 2,000 from a finance perspective, then I have to give you more by default because of the numbers.
The VA is the same issue.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yep.
two questions. First question is, can we get a copy of these slides?
Absolutely.
Second question. You spoke about partnerships, and you and I have had this conversation before. All of these, you know, like the equestrian partners, you know, war dogs, all these different things. Those are all outside agencies or 501c3 type entities. Who funds them, other than their own fundraising, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Fundraising.
A lot of their own fundraising, yeah. We're hoping with Dwyer that we can help to put this in a play where we've got money from the state, we put on the table for folks to also have funding. And the hope with Dwyer is to reach a place where, can we get $416,000 from the state each year? That's the money that's cut to us. We want to live in a world where we say, okay, look, I've got X amount out. Let me go to this foundation and see if they can match, so we can amplify. Once again, 1 + 1 = 3. So that's what we're hoping to do with Dwyer, is not only get it to the veterans groups, but then go to places like Mother Cabrini Foundation or New York State Health Foundation, or you name it, you know, Bob Woodruff, and say, hey, look, here are groups that we've already vetted that are known quantities in our community. Will you match us to try to get to have larger impact?
These outside partners, are they within the city limits or outside the city?
These are all within New York City. These are all available to our New York City.
No, but I'm saying, are they physically located within the city limits or are they outside? The reason I'm asking, and I spoke to the commissioner about this a while ago. The American Legion Department of New York has a thing called the clerk fund. We've got $5 million fund that was bequeathed to us from a veteran out in Long Island that says this money needs to go to help suicide prevention and homeless veterans. So we've made significant donations to some of these outside entities to help fund them because they are helping veterans. So I guess what I'm saying is, if there's one of these organizations that needs help, you know, I'd be happy to, you know, get you the website where they can go. There's an RFP, they fill out the RFP. No guarantee that they get the funding, but it's a place where they can possibly get some funding, some additional funding to help get them over the hump, if you will, to service more veterans. And as you were saying, the more that you can help, you know, the bigger the pie grows, right? I mean, it's a fact.
Do you know when the RFP application, sorry, so do you know when the RFP application starts or is it on a rolling basis?
It's online.
Okay.
It doesn't start and end.
Okay, so it's just always
So
accepting.
right now, it's ongoing.
Okay.
Is it through the American Legion?
Yeah, Department of New York,
This is Jim.
NYLegion.net, go there and you look up under resources. It's buried under the resources.
Yeah, I had trouble finding it, Frank.
Did you?
I'll definitely, I had trouble finding it. I'll try to get it. Yeah.
We'll also get the word
Yes, we
out.
can get it, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, there's no guarantees, you know.
Right.
There was a committee, I happen to sit on that committee that we review them, you know, validate the fact that it is a bona fide entity that's, you know, helping veterans, not that it's some guy sitting in his garage saying, well, I'd like to get some of this money, you know?
Here, can it be a national nonprofit that has a chapter in New York?
The New York chapter would have to request it.
New York chapter, okay, got it.
Yeah, the funds are strictly for within New York. The last time I checked, New York City isn't still in New York, right?
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
you mentioned about the school program, and that's very good. But I can tell you the school program is on a personal basis, because I happen to know the principal, I happen to know the community. It is almost impossible to get into schools. We need help getting into schools. The Legion and the VFW both have scholarship programs. I've sent them to yours, I've sent them to your office. Last year on Staten Island, the Legion Oratorical Contest had one entry for a scholarship, one entry. The VFW program for high school students in this post had one entry for a $35,000 scholarship, one entry.
Did they get it? No, I'm kidding.
No, but my point is, I can't get into the schools. I've sent emails to 4 different school JROTCs and got no response.
Paul, you need to forgive me, and I think I owed you an intro to Noah Angelus. I don't know if I made it yet. We gotta close that loop so we can get you with
Yes.
Noah. Because Noah's kind of taken a handle on at least penetration of JROTCs. We've had 6 going on 7 new JROTC programs in the past 3 years. So between that and the current group, that's a way to touch JROTCs. Also, I'm hoping that as MFA expands, you've got a counselor in each school who's one of our allies. And right now in Richmond County, we want to enrich out. And so hopefully that can be another way to peacock and get this known to people as far as things that you all are doing as far as with our VSOs.
What's going on? Boy State and Girl State. A week free school on leadership. On all of Staten Island, we had 9 entrants. Paid for, everything is paid for, 9 entrants. That's sad to me. We can't give the funds to kids. It's really sad. We need to get into the schools to be able to talk to these people.
We'll follow up. This is not an excuse. Just want to let you know where my mind's at. I care about getting more young blood in these VSOs. We've been doing a lot behind the scenes to kind of get it where, as we have these transitioning service members come to New York, that we are making contact with them. And for the Legion, the contact, it's Gabe Morty out of Chem Lab. It's the person who's supposed to be air traffic control, which is setting this up stuff, so you haven't seen it yet. But that's him. For the VFW, it's Ryan Graham, who's here on the board, as far as the person who's air traffic control. When someone says, hey, I'm new to New York City, 5,000 veterans come here each year. Most come to school. Out of 200,000 leave the service. And so when they come and say, hey, I want to tie into the Legion, get to Gabe, he makes a referral. Get to Ryan, makes a referral. We're trying to, we've been focused on getting that locked in so you can start to see a spigot of new talent. But we owe you as far as the school stuff, and I apologize about that. Just so you know.
I just have a question. Is it incumbent upon the Legion and the VFW to get into the schools, or can you work with the local recruiting staff to help get in, or even get the word out? And I say that because my last duty station was recruiting duty over in Long Island in Garden City. And so the recruiters recruited for Boy State and Girl State. So can you work with the recruiting station, which, by the way, the Marine recruiting station is also moving to Fort Hamilton, so right across the bridge for you, and work with the recruiters there with the Army, maybe in the Coast Guard, to be able to get some of this word out to the high school students?
It's possible. The turnover in the recruiters is very quick.
It is, but if you go to the headquarters staff is there for a longer period of time, then the recruiters get moved between the recruiting stations. But the headquarters, where it's like the district or whatever, they can actually be the point of contact there. Just a note that
We
would
just need
be
to
helpful.
deconflict this so that we can do these in timely manners, so that the kids are at least aware that
Yeah.
there's monies out there to help them. Or other opportunities. Boy State and Girl, that was, we used to get 20 people a year going to Boy State and Girl State from Staten Island, 9 this year. And they leave, in 2 weeks. So for a week on how our government works and leadership.
It's a leadership program,
Mhm.
That's what it is.
completely free.
Free.
Doesn't cost them a dime.
Yeah.
It costs this post $1,200 to send 2 people, a boy and a girl.
I'm hoping we can work it. I'm hoping we get that in a good place, man.
It's an incredible program. They actually build a government from the ground up.
Yep.
They hold elections, they have 2 parties.
Future leaders of America.
It's high school juniors. There's no politics, other than teaching our form of government. It's a leadership program, plain and simple. It's not, we're gonna put your son or your daughter in the military. That's not the intent. The intent is to teach citizenship and how our government functions.
So I love where you're at as far as recruiters, Paul. So I've got homework is making the Noah Angelus connection. He's the person who, he's one of the few military veterans who's in leadership in DOE. He's an administrator. He was a principal last year. He's a superintendent now. He's got influence. Also, we got to tie in with MFA as far as the counselors, making sure they know what's up. And then we've been making it our business lately to have a strong relationship with recruiters also. We've been slowly chopping that tree now. And Nicole Orlando from our team leads that, so we'll make sure that we're tied in with you, here in Staten Island, Nicole, where we can try to get you lined up. We care just as much about people at the beginning of the service as our older veterans, and so we're trying to put hands on it. So we've made it our business to plug in with these recruiters more too. So we've done a lot of work there. We'll see if we can get you those touches. I love where you're at with that, Mercedes. That's a really good idea.
I just want to note, because I sit on the interview board for the Naval Academy and West Point and Air Force Academy for the senator's office, and a lot of the students that apply actually do it after their experience at Boise State and Girl State.
Exactly.
And they say like, I was, you know, really
That is a
inspired, and then
eliminator
they put that in their,
Positive display.
yeah, and their
I
parent, and
sit
their.
on the board here on Staten Island also.
Yeah.
So maybe another thing that we can do is at the beginning of the year, I meet with all the military family advocates. If you would like to join that meeting and you can speak about your scholarships directly, so if they have questions and you can make that connection, we're expanding the program. So, you know, we'll have more schools to include. So either you can pass on the information prior to September to me, or if you'd like to join the call and you
I'd
can
like
share
to
the,
join the call.
yeah, definitely, sure.
Several years ago, I attended a meeting with the principals from every high school on Staten Island to talk about Boy State or talk about contest, Girl State, some of the other programs.
Yeah.
Most of the principals never heard of it. Yeah. You know, what is your rhetorical contest? Well, you know, there's a boy from New York State that just received $50,000 in scholarship money because he went from, you know, this county level, the district level, department level, up to national. And I mean, the kid's an incredible speaker. He, $50,000. I mean,
Wow.
I don't know about most of us here, but I certainly don't have $50,000 I could throw in the street, right?
What I like about what Lauren said with MFA is these principals got so many things going on in their minds, in one ear, out the other. Whereas the touches with these counselors, that can be the enduring piece. We always have somebody who can always kind of get us folks, as long as we maintain a relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, all the military family advocates, they have a list of all the families. So if I send them something, they just blast it out, right? So if that, we can do that as well. We can blast out the different scholarships. And I can even follow up 2 weeks later, like, hey, in case you missed this, please have people, you know, with their submissions in before this time. You know, I'd love to work in partnership for you to increase the amount of people that apply to these, definitely.
Yeah, Paul, Frank and myself, we've done it on cable TV talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's,
You know. It's a freebie.
Just, getting back to the mental health programs that you have, I actually took quite a few notes, because a lot of things I was not aware of in terms of services. But, and this came up at the meeting that we had with Congressman Nellie Takas last week. There are two parts, and the one that kind of brought my attention based on your presentation was there are a lot of veterans out there that need help, okay, but they don't ask for it. And you know, pride is part of that and things like that. You know, I can fix it myself kind of thing. So, and you also mentioned this mission vet check, which sounds like a pretty good program. You go out there and check the veterans and how you doing, that kind of a thing. So, what are you doing to help these veterans who are reluctant to ask for help? I mean, this is a mental crisis issue in itself, that some of these folks really need help, but they're not going to ask for it. They're just too proud to do it, or other reasons, but they still need help. How do you address that?
so oftentimes, veterans will come to us with other needs, right? So say if they need housing, say if they need help with finances, so they want to, you know, expand their benefits. And so we use that as a segue to say, hey, you sounds like, you know, this can be really stressful. You know, how are you doing? Just a simple question of how you're doing. Then you hear this outpour of stress, like, oh, it's so hard. I'm afraid of being homeless. You know, my money's running out. And then, you know, would you be willing to talk to someone? You know, you don't have to take medication. You can do it virtually. You know, is it something that you would consider? So we try to make it as welcoming, but also trying to have them understand that, you know, maybe it's something that they need.
And I need to have psychological safety with you for me to feel comfortable confiding in you. That's a lot of what you're dealing with. And this goes back when Lauren was talking about, you know, internal training, external training, where we're trying to get better in-house under Lauren's stewardship as far as how to best have those conversations in the right way, where when a woman or man is comfortable, that they can open up, and then we know next steps. And externally, it's working with partners on that too, to get better at it.
Just one more thing, and it's, you touch on a lot of things, but, communication certainly is a key part, but based on that meeting, last week with the Congresswoman and listening to, what you were talking about today in terms of programs and synergies, I think a lot of veterans are simply uninformed. I just don't think that they know what's going on out there. And, part of that problem certainly is, I think you mentioned you have a budget of what, $5 million, okay? Considering the bigger picture of New York City, that's relatively small, okay? I mean, it's minuscule compared to the entire New York City budget, or even the state budget for that matter. And yet, priorities seem to be in places that concern a lot of veterans, especially people from American Legion and VFW. And just an example, I know it's a touchy subject, but as an example, there was a $50 million allotment of credit cards for illegal people, migrants. $50 million, okay? Okay, for people that are here under questionable circumstances. And yet we're looking at your organization that's supporting veterans, $5 million. Now you see the disparity, and this is a very touchy issue, and I know it gets political, but see, that's the problem, that it's become too political. But who's more important? People that serve the country, and many of them are disabled, okay, or people who are really not supposed to be here. And yet we focus all of that attention there, and then the veterans' needs are getting buried by these special interest groups. And that, I have to say, that's a very sensitive issue amongst many people. And I see very little action being done about that, okay? And I don't know that there's an answer to that because of the politics. But the important thing is here, is veterans need help, and you have minuscule budgets available for them. Okay, now I'm not talking about the VA, I'm talking about New York City. The VA's got their issues, but they also try to do things to help. But I think that our priorities are a little mixed up. If you can, to be very blunt about it. I think the priorities are very mixed up. I hear lots and lots of speeches on Memorial Day, on Veterans Day, on D-Day. Thank you, veterans. Without you, we wouldn't have this country. Freedom isn't free. I hear all these speeches, but when it comes down to the hard stuff, where is everybody? And I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed and much more vocally than it is.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's tough there is for me, I'm speaking to me as commissioner, I'm taking what I've got, trying to do what I can with these resources. We're doing everything we can to try to get to the best impact with what we've got. We're the only city in America with a Veteran Service Agency. We exist because folks protested back in 2014 when the last mayor first started office. Folks outside of City Hall. They are one of the people. I'm going to Lee's funeral coming up this weekend. Lee Covino was one of the folks out there protesting. So 34 people every day. And at that time, the mayor at the time was saying, hey, we don't need this, we don't need this, we don't need this. As soon as there was a veto-proof majority, because you had Eric Aldrich starting to whip up votes and whatnot. Once he got to 26, the day he got to 26, all of a sudden, hey, let's get the agency on. And so it just shows how so much of this is beholden to the people as far as our advocacy. So there's a direct line between that advocacy and us being able to do things. But I'm with you. It's just for me right now in this seat as commissioner, and I saw Mercedes have the Veterans Alliance bag. I used to donate the Alliance back in the day. We protested back in the day for us. But in this seat as commissioner, we're doing what we can with our resources, limited as they are, to try to get 1 + 1 = 3 and to have max value. But I'm not completely taking the point.
How do we help?
And this is where, for me, it's really it's about the advocacy piece. It's really just folks like, reaching out to our elected officials and other leaders as far as saying, hey, look, this is very important, to try to move them to be able to move things in a certain way for us. So those are ways, but I think that's the biggest thing that we lack is that advocacy right now.
Well, one more thing. You mentioned something that's really interesting, that you said, and I'm just quoting what you said, and I don't know if that's accurate figures or not, but you said something like, 2,000 may need help, but only 200 apply. Okay, so the issue here is that there might be masses of people that need it, but if you don't hear from these people, it's not going to get the attention that it needs. And I think that needs to be addressed to bring those people in that really need that help. So I really understand that. So if you have a massive number of people, maybe there's 10,000 people that could use some help, but only a few hundred are actually applying from a governmental position and a priority position, we're saying, well, it's only a small group of people that are asking for this, so we're only gonna give you a small amount of money. So there has to be a lot more emphasis on advocacy for veterans. I think that that's really, really important. And I kind of wrote down that something you probably heard a long time ago, the squeaky wheel usually gets the oil. Remember that saying? Well, special industries that are really loud are gonna get the most attention. And I guess what we have to do is get a louder voice for veterans to get the attention that they need. And I understand there's a lot of politics involved in that. But if you only have a small group making a small voice as opposed to another group that's much, much louder, okay, where is the attention gonna go to? And I think that the veterans community needs to be aware of that. And in order to do that, we need more of our public servants to be talking to and speaking to veterans like this forum to get that word out so that the veterans can step up and create a greater voice. And there's one more thing, that's really, I'm not sure if it's what we'll call from a mental health perspective. Maybe you can offer a suggestion, but between what I know about the VFW and the American Legion is that we're an aging organization, okay? That many of our members are well over 70 years old, okay? And we pretty much don't have any more World War II, maybe one or two left. We don't have too many Korean War veterans. We do have quite a few Vietnam veterans and so on. But we're talking 60, 70 years old and older, okay? So it's more of a generational thing here that the young vets, when I say young vets, Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraqi freedom, you know, all of those types. These are younger folks that are in maybe their 30s and 40s, okay? And then we have the younger ones that are coming off of active duty after a couple of years, you know, more recent. And they're not identifying with the older generation, okay? And I think that is a deterrent to get more people in. I'm just wondering if you had any suggestions on how to bridge that generational gap there. That you guys are a bunch of old guys and we're a bunch of young guys, and we have different priorities and different values. You know, how do we bring them together? That's a big question.
I'm sorry, what was your name again, too, sir? Sorry.
My name is Frank.
Hey, Frank James. Structurally, we're trying to build an apparatus where we at least get them to your doorstep. As far as trying to get of those 5,000, we're working to make contact with them and say, hey, do you want to be put in touch with the American Legion and make that warm handle? So we're working to get them here. How many of them stay? That's on you as far as what, you know, come, but what it takes to kind of make something more appealing for them to take the reins to be the next generation. I don't control that piece. So for us structurally, we've been doing a lot to get this in the data for all the transitioning service members as soon as they come, so we can at least ask the question and start delivering them to you. Theory of the case I keep telling myself, Frank, is let's say Gold Star Post just gets 10 guys per year of that group, only 2 of them pan out. As time goes by, that 2 becomes 4, becomes 6, becomes 8. So even if you look for fun, we can start to really reconstitute and get a new crop of leaders here. But we, you know, for us, we're going to work to deliver to the doorstep. What's next is going to really be on you guys at the end of the day, as far as how to keep them here.
Before I add anything, Ryan, were you gonna say anything? Because I said you came off.
Who was that brought up the question? What was it? Frank?
Right, yeah, mm-hmm.
Frank, if you want to speak about that, well, I'll just tell you outright. It comes down to the grassroots level. So my VFW post in Corona, was on the verge of dying. So since July of last year, we've brought in about 50 new members. It just comes down to marketing, and most of them, just about all of them are GWAT vets. Comes down to marketing, how you do it. Usually at the national levels, they have really good packets. Whether VFW, American Legion. So, but it really kind of, you got to get out there and send emails to school principals. So that kind of takes care of a few things, because you never know. Sometimes, guaranteed, there's a lot of kids in that school where their parents served. So you never know. A lot of this stuff happens by chance, but you got to market a little bit. But if you want, we could speak more.
So I'll add to Ryan's, because I met Ryan about 11, 12 years ago, because we were members of the same post in Queens. Our post in Queens was actually the youngest VFW in all of the United States, all Iraq, Afghanistan veterans. And we got recruited from somebody else. Like I got recruited from a guy that I knew that served with another guy that I knew. And it takes consistency with meetings, consistency with events. They want to do service projects. And if you have stuff for them to do, or they know the Post is gonna be open every Friday night, or the Post has a spaghetti dinner every month or something like that, the consistency helps too with the younger ones, just to feel comfortable that they're welcome, that you have the same initiatives and priorities. And that's how our Post was busy, but the commander had enough time to kind of dedicate over the years as the commanders changed and different commanders didn't have as much time to put into it. It dwindled, and then Ryan went to a different post and he's helped build that up. So it takes a number of things. As far as getting the veterans to designate, I will say that DVS has made a strong initiative to get veterans to sit on their local community boards. So the local community boards within each of the boroughs, within each of the community sections, we've been trying to get like an actual designation for a veteran to sit on that board and get veterans to step up to sit on those boards. One, to kind of bridge that gap between civilians and veterans, but also to get veterans engaged in the civic process. Because the more veterans are engaged in the civic process, the more advocacy that you're going to get for these kind of initiatives. So that's just something. And then at the end of every year, the advisory board does do a report to the city council and the mayor, where we kind of list like topics that have come up across each of the meetings. And you're actually the second person to have a comment about the amount of money going to migrants versus veterans. So I think that that's enough for us to make sure that we annotate that in the end of year report. So then that way we can say, listen, multiple members within the community have stated their frustration with the amount of money that's being allocated there compared to the amount of money that's allocated towards veteran causes. I just want to note too, because Don D. McKellar just sent a note. The people's money is the participatory budget process, a democratic process in which community members decide how to spend part of a public budget. Citywide voting span from May 1st, 2024 until June 12th. Dondi also put the link and then the prompts for it as well. So Dondi, if you want to come off and add anything there.
Thank you, Mercedes. Yes, I would like to say that the people's money is new. It came from the New York Civic Engagement. In 2018, we started, but this is the second cycle that is being ran. And I just like to say that this is a great opportunity to tap into this, to utilize the funds that the city has for the public to decide on how to spend. And each borough right now has money allocated to it. For example, the Bronx has $870,000, which is 5 projects will be funded at $174,000. I know Queens has 1 million, and they have 5 projects that will be funded at $200,000. And Manhattan has 600,000, and they have 4 projects that will be funded for 150,000. So if the day is the last day of voting, it's in all 5 boroughs. And with this link, I don't know, can everyone see the link?
Yeah, we can see it in the chat.
Yep.
Okay. With this link, you can actually go to the website. You can indicate your zip code. And like I say, it's borough specific. And you will see, it's going to ask you for a partner code. You just entered 5x5, which is the Veterans and Servicemen code. And that'll let you know that they'll let them know that you spoke with me or that I informed you of this. And you will be able to see the projects listed in your borough. And you will be able to vote on those and choose which ones you would like to see implemented. And this is the voting phase, which is phase 3 of the people's money. And the next phase is phase 4, which is be the implementation phase. And you will be able to find out in August which of these projects received the funding to go on to phase 4. And I thank you, Mercedes, for the time to share this information with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Can they just confirm whether the password is 55555 or?
I think it's just 5x5.
Okay, so it's
5 by 5.
It's 5 times.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just 5x5.
Okay, sorry.
Any other comments before we introduce Joe?
I just want to piggyback off something Frank said. Frank asked about engaging younger veterans. I think one of the most powerful things you have as a veteran is being a veteran, where it's shown that veterans will trust another veteran over almost any other entity because they can relate to you. So you yourself with your experience are one of the best marketing tools to bring in new veterans because they can relate to your experience much more than a big government agency, right? So, I mean, have those personal conversations, invite them to some programs, initiatives. There are outdoor programs that will take you hiking, you know, that could be like an experiential trip or bonding trip, that forges these relationships, right? You know, to expand the community.
Yeah, can I add on top of that?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's little things, and you got it. Like I said, it's just marketing and where you are demographically. So, example, Staten Island, you have the I was forgot the name of the team, the Staten Island independent baseball team. You can easily get tickets for free, and I've been doing it for years with the Mets and Yankees. Call them baseball outings, and you can get free tickets through their community relations. And a lot of young vets, they have families, they have kids, and hell, I mean, who doesn't love going out to a baseball game? And not just baseball games; it could be MLS, New York City Football Club. Um, right by us in Queens, we also have the Queen Zoo. So this August at my post, where we're actually going to have a family day. So I'm going to be working with I believe the Parks Department, have free access for a few hours. Hell, even adults love the zoo. I mean, I love it. I'm a 40-year-old man. And then afterwards, we walk right up the block and we barbecue or we get catering or whatever. There's those little things.
I mean, he just touched the nerve on the ferry boats. So, yeah, you're faced with the same issue that the VA is faced with, right? You know, the bigger the pool, the more money you're gonna get. Have you considered, let's put up a little advertisement on the billboard at halftime, well, not halftime, in between periods, I'm thinking hockey. In between innings or something that says, you know, if you're a veteran in crisis, contact this number, you know? I mean, I can't imagine they would actually charge you for that. If they do, you know, maybe we should consider putting a lock on the door over there, but, you know, something as simple as that, you know, if you get 5 veterans, I mean, it's 5 that you didn't have, right? You know, small little, you know, baby steps, right? You get those 5, and those 5 get you 2 more, and those 2 get you another one, and he gets you another 2, you know? And the next thing you know, you got a $5.5 million budget. I'm gonna write up a resolution, I don't know how far it's gonna go, to push to see if we can get, you know, force our legislators to increase your funding somehow. Whether it's through state funds or, city funding, you get money from the state wire program, right?
Yeah, we do, but that's the money we're trying to kick out. Like, we're trying to take that money and put it down in fee.
But if they increase, if we can get an increase in that funding, right? Then that's monies that you can put to good use. I mean,
Yeah, we'll do good things. We'll do what we can. So Lee, you know, this is, you know, we do what we can to be good stewards to get as much return on investment as we can from the taxpayers' dollars. I'm just gonna mention one thing, just random, but you know, it's important to me to get more young blood in RVSOs, you know, discuss. But something else that we're trying to do is get as many government partners who we can share our veteran information with to share the information. So we've been in the process of signing different data sharing agreements where we signed one with the Senate, signed one with the Assembly. We're working on one right now with our federal elected officials. We signed one with our first borough president. And the Bronx will take that one and mimic it and with the other borough presidents. So that general counsel's connecting to the others. Where when a few years ago, we had about 5,000 veterans contact information. Now we have 120,000. And so for us, we estimate there'll be more than 200,000 veterans in this city. So the idea is that if we are able to get the senator, all the veterans who are in her district, as much as we know, that can't help but have good things, good dividends come from that. Same thing for all the other electeds, including the community boards, including the community education councils. And so for us, it's teaming things up. We can cut up a bulk list of addresses and break it out by city councilors. And we signed our first agreement with the speaker's office. We already have agreements in line with the speaker. So it's being able to cut this data up where we can say, okay, here are all the veterans in this community board district, and this city council district, and this assembly member's district, and this senator's district, and so on and so forth. And so to have that be a way to kind of amplify what we're doing, because we can only do so much, but if we have so many other folks also echoing, this is about touching. So almost the same thing they say in politics or in business, if I keep touching you, at some point the bow will break. And so that's something else we're looking at.
The sphere of influence, I think, is what it's called.
Yeah. That's all I.
We were gonna turn it over to Joseph.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's up?
You
Oh, yeah,
introduced
Joe,
yourself, yeah.
come on up. Joe, come on, have a seat, y'all.
Yeah.
Just, I'm sorry, I almost forgot. Just happy to introduce you. For a while, we've gone without having someone who's our point person who's in Staten Island. So, I'll let Joe introduce himself, but he's our veteran benefits advisor who covers down on Staten Island, New York City, DBS, a Navy veteran, and, just, Joe List, everybody. So, yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Joe Liss. I am a veteran specialist. I am stationed out here in Borough Hall on Tuesdays and Thursdays for any veterans to come in if they have any needs in getting assistance in filing any claims, that they might be doing an appeal, an increase, or an original claim, or even a new claim. I'm here to assist in any way that I can, and that's what I'm here for.
Can you talk about you as far as your service and you being here? Because you live, you here.
Yes, I live right by Curtis High School. I'm part of the North Shore. And I'm trying to make a difference here in the veterans population. I also work on Fridays at the Neon Kitchen, which is a food pantry on the Department of Probation, which I am stationed at when the veterans come in to get their food, that if they need any assistance in filing their claims, I am there with them as well. I'm also trying to get a little bit of push into 1150 South Avenue. I've been putting out flyers and cards and things like that to get more influx, which we have been. And I have to say that I hope that we can make it, from the 30 that we have now into hundreds.
So can you talk about your military service? I just want folks to know this, just.
I'm a Navy veteran. I was stationed out at Millington, Memphis, NATTC. I was a aviation hydraulics mechanic, or affectionately known as a bubble chaser. And I enjoyed my service, and I just wish I could do more. I wish I could have started this position earlier, because I feel that this is definitely making a difference in one way or the other with all the different veterans that I've been affiliated with right now.
And Joe is accredited by the state to process veteran claims, so VA claims. So if you have any issues, any needs, this is the guy as far as human Staten Island. Yeah.
Do you have a specific number down at Borough Hall?
313. It's the third floor, 313. We share a suite with the state. And it's actually the Veterans Resource Room.
Joe, can you give me
Somebody
your phone
asked-
number, email,
somebody
let them know everything.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it in the chat too from his card.
Okay, my phone number is 646-799-2743. That's a direct line to me.
Say it again, brother, please, some people write it down.
Okay, it's 646-799-2743. And if you have, my email is jliss@veterans.nyc.gov.
JLISS.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because we put out a directory. American Richmond County puts out a directory every year. And historically, we've always had that contact information in the directory. So if somebody needs, want to contact a service office, right? Who do you contact? I could give them the name of somebody up in Greene County for that.
No.
But
We have to go make sure that Staten Island stays strong. We don't want any veterans going underneath the radar. We don't want them going elsewhere either. We need them to come here, and we have to service them to the best of our abilities and get them what they deserve straight away.
and they need to understand that the cost going through you is
Zero.
zero.
That is correct. Our services are no charge.
All right. Are there any outstanding items, comments, questions, either virtually or in person?
I have one that, this is just a feedback. We have 300 members in this post, the largest post on Staten Island. This is the turnout we got. And we notified our people. Our cycle time to get information to our people is normally 2 months. So we were short on this by a month. So if we really want to have a response, we need the projection 2 months out. This event is happening. So that's the reality of our cycle time. A lot of our veterans are older. They don't like to go onto websites. A lot of them don't like to use computers, to be perfectly honest. So we mail out a newsletter. So if it goes out once monthly, we need to have the information 2 months in advance in order to get the information to them. So that they can make a decision to come or not. That's our cycle time, and I think that's pretty much the cycle time of every other Legion post and mostly the VFW posts here on the island. So that's just a planning consideration. And it's probably the same pretty much throughout, except for the really young VFW pupil. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of our communications link.
Yeah, so the county organization meets once a month. So by the time you get the information out to the county, which then
Yeah,
gets it out
and
to
the post meet once a month.
you know, it's, the horses are already out of the game.
We need at least 2 months advance notice, for example, on the bulletin for this meeting. I got it out to every member of this post. And I got it out to the Legion members in Staten Island, but it was a short lead time. We need a bigger lead time. That's just our cycle time, our decision planning cycle.
Would it be appropriate if we could send a representative at your county organization meeting?
Absolutely.
You could.
But even there, you still gotta consider, we need 2 months in advance. And it's a good thing to reinforce it the next month. Because we all forget shit.
The next county meeting is next Friday, which is our county convention, where we'll hold elections, et cetera. And then the one after that will be in August. So at this county meeting, we won't be giving out a whole lot of information, so you're probably looking at September sometime.
Okay.
No, thanks. No, yeah.
And Wendy, were you gonna add anything?
Yes, please. Just a reminder that with regard to the HelloFresh initiative, next week, 17th. So it's a federal holiday. A lot of organizations will be closed. Just with regard to those organizations that are receiving the HelloFresh meals that we prepare every Wednesday, 2,000 meals that go out to our veterans, their families, and veteran service providers, that will not happening on next Wednesday, but it will be added to the end of the cycle in November. So instead of 2,000 bags in November, we'll do 2,000 bags in one particular week. We'll do 4,000 bags. So I just want to make individuals aware of that.
On June 19th. is what she was
And
referring
she's
to.
talking about the Wednesday before the week of Thanksgiving will be the
The second
extra,
day,
that
yeah.
extra, yeah. Wendy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, without any additional comments, I would just like to remind everybody, the next meeting in the Bronx will be held on September 12th. And thank you all for participating both virtually and in person. And we look forward to seeing and hearing from you again. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.